Time for the newspapers. So we're going to kick things off here with the Irish Daily Star. For you, Cusack stand is the appropriate headline here in the back in the photograph. Donald Cusack under fire, pundit hits back at critics. So Donald had his say yesterday. There was I don't need to repeat everything that happened in terms of his comments to Derek McGrath at the weekend, but he was speaking yesterday and said that, gave a bit of context to his comments and said that when he had come in, it was a bit of an old boys club and he had to shake things up, and that was a process that he'd been through and that he feels he's entitled to make the points he needs to make. That's the story that's there. And then down here, Ger Loughnane, Muppets McGrath and Donald driven by their pathetic egos. Says Ger Loughnane there. I'm going to come back to that story in a little bit when we get through all the back pages, because as I said, I think it's maybe the most scathing piece of Irish journalism I've ever encountered, so we'll come back to it. And also Emery has Pepe in step. This is the signing of Nicholas Pepe for the Gunners ahead of the new season. That's the Irish Daily Star.
Yeah, I have the Sun here as well. Burned, that's the main one there. Talking about Shamrock Rovers getting knocked out of the Europa League last night to Apollon Limassol. Obviously didn't see the game, but I mean, in relation to Jack Byrne as well, I think Jack Byrne's been in great form. I think he's got a great chance of maybe making the Ireland squad again. Going out last night, though, it was probably that maybe they stepped too far. They got themselves into extra time, went out in extra time. Good performance by all accounts. I think over the two legs he played quite well from what I hear as well. I was away last week as well, so I didn't even get a chance to see the first leg of that. I saw the second leg against Bran, where they actually played quite well, but anyway, they're gone. And then, of course, Nick's French connection, should I say, Nicholas Pepe has joined Arsenal. That's been done and dusted now, so that's a big deal for Arsenal.
Yeah, huge.
We'll come back to that one, I think, when we're chatting around the football in a bit, yeah.
The Irish Examiner, meanwhile, it's more on that Donald Cusack comments yesterday, including saying that he is interested in taking the Cork hurling reins. We'll see how that plays out over the next little while. He might be in a good position to do that. Power surge is the other piece here. This is Robbie Power. Electrifying finish sees Tudor City snatch Galway hurdle. The big story from Galway yesterday. I think most people delighted for Robbie Power. Pretty patient. Did you watch that? Patient.
No, do you know?
Yesterday? You've checked out, Kev.
Do you know what? Last week I missed the hurling at the weekend with being away, and even that you're going about the panel on RTE at the weekend as well. I didn't see the Sunday game because I was away. Yeah. So getting back in, I have kind of checked out. I've been off it. Been off the radar a bit this week. I've not even been watching the races, which is very unusual because I'd love it. I'd normally watch it all, but not watching it this week. We're
going to talk to Ruby Walsh a bit later on about we're going to ask him specifically about just somebody who knows a thing or two about these things, just how good that ride was by Robbie Power yesterday, and get his tips, obviously, as well as Joe Walsh, all in association with Paddy Power. We're going to get their tips to see exactly where they're at in their competition this week, and mark your card as well for today and for the weekend as well.
Yeah, next one is the Mirror. Harry Maguire is desperate to secure his dream move to Man United. Looks like he's trying to get that one through. Now, this is the fee. United's offer of 70 million, which could rise to 80, is unacceptable from what Leicester are saying. They're holding out for 90 million. This looks like it's going to happen. Now, whether or not they talk of City that might come in late to try and hijack this move, but it looks like he's going to United. That's a massive one for Man United.
He's on the brink of doing a Peter Odom wingy by all accounts. Looking at that, he's sort of semi-refusal to play there.
There's talk as well that it could have a bit of a knock-on effect, that move as well, that if he were to go to United, Leicester are going to sign Dunk from Brighton. Brighton then are going to sign the lad from Bristol City. I'll think of his name in a sec for you. Is it Edwards? And then there's Kieran Clark. Then will go to Bristol City. Right. So there's a knock-on effect that could affect one of the Irish players as well within this one. Yeah.
And it would mean that there's no more Duncan Duffy at Brighton as well.
Yeah. It's a great move for Lewis Dunk, isn't it? If that was to happen for him anyway. Yeah.
The Irish Independent this morning, it's a picture of pretty disconsolate Jack Byrne there, as Kev mentioned on the back page, after Shamrock Rovers' exit last night. Heartbreak for Hoops, extra time agony sees Rovers crash out of Europe. Moran makes welcome Kingdom return. This is the Kerry team, for what it's worth, that has been named to take on Meath at the weekend. And also James Corrigan writing here that the Danish golfer Thorbjorn Olesen, who, as he writes, made a successful debut in last year's Ryder Cup, is being investigated by police after being arrested on suspicion of sexual assault on a flight returning from last weekend's WGC event on the PGA Tour. James Corrigan writes that Olesen had tweeted his disappointment of finishing 27th. The 29-year-old was in first-class cabin in Sunday's British Airways flight from Nashville to Heathrow, along with Ian Poulter. Poulter had stepped in to try and pacify Olsen, it seems, who was allegedly abusing fellow passengers and crew. Poulter fell asleep before Olsen continued to bother other passengers and urinated in an aisle in the cabin, and police, needless to say, were waiting to pick him up as he arrived, and he is facing some pretty serious charges now. That's the Irish Independent this morning.
Yeah, we got the Guardian here. Comeback kid Smith beats the Boos to hit England. They're under pressure. I think Australia in the Ashes. I didn't again.
280 yards, they recovered at the end, Australia.
Yeah, I think they're in trouble. They're in serious trouble, I think, early on. So, yeah, 284 all out. England are in now, 10 for no wickets.
Yeah, same story on the Times this morning. England fear as Anderson suffers injuries. The return of Stephen Smith yesterday was obviously one of the big things in the Boos, and apparently there's a bunch of people waving sandpaper in the crowd. This was the guy who people probably have some recollection that he was done for ball tampering, and he had a bit of sandpaper in his pocket, and he was like chafing away at the ball and giving himself an extra bit of an edge, and then came out afterwards and was like utterly distraught and tearful about. I mean, I think about how he'd been caught, and as opposed to the act itself. But then afterwards, you just had this like litany of players coming forward to say, yeah, sure, like
that's done. That's
all scratched. Monty Panesar did an interview on TalkSport at one point where I think he might have released a book, and the former England bowler, and he was saying, yeah, sure, like it seemed like he wandered sort of blissfully into these comments about, well, like sure, yeah, we all did a bit of ball tampering. It's just the way it happens.
Yeah, I know.
So I was kind of wondering, why don't they could very easily get around all this by. Between every ball that's bowled, the bowler has to throw the ball to the umpire. Quick run of the hand over it, like takes half second for that entire process to happen. Gives the ball back to him, bowls it down.
I think even with that as well, though, it's obviously the ball's taking a lot of hits throughout, isn't it? So it's going to get some sort of mark.
But that'll be just an organic thing that the umpire will be able to feel as he goes. Like
I suppose you could tell, yeah.
Like if 5 balls in, he's like, woof, Jesus, this thing is scuffed to shit. He's like, well, that's not a natural progression.
It's logical, isn't it? That's logical, really. It would be an easy thing to do, definitely, yeah.
Are you into the cricket?
No, not really.
Not having it?
No. I was never allowed to watch that at home as a kid.
Oh, you're not? Get that off. Was that it?
Yeah.
Did you ever bat around a bit, or like, because you would have got mates
just lashing balls as a kid, but no, I never really played it. I played for my school team once when the football season had ended, so obviously it was through the summer and that was it, but no.
You never went home and said, listen, Dad, you won't believe what happened today.
Oh, get out! Get out!
You're not a son of mine!
Yeah, it was pretty much that, yeah.
Have you any other papers there?
Oh, yeah, got the Herald here, yeah. This is a piece of Kieran Whelan here. 10 years on, the Ewigs are not easily started. So this is in relation to obviously the weekend's football ahead, and I mean it's more looking at Dublin really there around. I mean it's a dead rubber this weekend, isn't it? The Tyrone game for them, isn't it? So it's looking ahead really for the semis for them, and we'll see how that goes, I suppose. Yeah.
The Irish Times this morning, the main story here, the front page of the Irish Times sports section, is reflections on last weekend's hurling with Jackie Turrell and Denny and O'Riordan writing down here, Mayo face what amounts to a must-win game to go through. So obviously that's looking ahead to Castlebar.
There's one thing, sorry, just in the Herald as well, Adrian, just on, we've not really touched on it, it's the Community Shield final this week. I'm actually at Wembley for the game, so get back in from Castlebar and flying into London on Sunday for that. This is about Klopp needs to lay down a marker against Man City. It's interesting because there's a few negative comments that's coming. I'll probably get into Liverpool, I think, later on. We'll have a chat around Liverpool and the lack of transfer activity that's gone on this season with them. But they've not had a great pre-season. Obviously, Firmino, Mane and Salah have all been playing international football. So when are they going to get up to speed? When are they going to get right? Maybe something we'll get into a little bit later as well. Do you think maybe Klopp should have gone into the market? Should they have decided? But that seems to me, it seems like it's the club's policy this summer. Look, we've made some big signings over the last few seasons.
Listen, give me some money, like we can kick on here. And the club are just saying, listen, forget about it. We're thereabouts, we're happy enough.
Yeah, that's it. It'd be an interesting one, yeah.
The last one for me for the minute, the Daily Telegraph, redemption for Smith. Those headlines absolutely drive me bonkers. It's not redemption for Smith. Like there is no redemption about it. He did what he did. He cheated. He cheated.
Yeah.
He served his ban. He's back. It's not redemption.
Is it not?
He's just back. You can't redeem something having made an absolute idiot of himself by cheating.
Yeah, but he's redeeming himself in the Australians' fans' eyes, isn't he?
There's no redemption. It's like he hasn't. The redemption aspect of it is to suggest that he gets to wipe the slate clean and say, well, that never happened, and look what a great cricketer I am. It's not. Like, that still exists. There's no redemption in it.
Oh, well.
It's just such an easy throwaway. You see it all the time in sports. Somebody does something utterly stupid and ridiculous that will be forever on their CV.
I tell you,
and then they go ahead and score a big goal in a big game, and it's like, he's been redeemed for shooting a village of 47 people 4 weeks ago. That's not what happened. He just scored a good goal. That's all that happened.
Well, you need that big moment almost to see you can put it aside, though, isn't it?
It's bonkers, Kev.
Well, I know, obviously, clearly.
There are all the headlines across the back pages this morning. The one story that we did want to, at just gone 8 o'clock on this Friday morning, delve into a small bit was the story in the back page of the Irish Daily Star this morning. Ger Loughnane, Muppets McGrath and Donalogue driven by their pathetic egos. This is the reflections on the controversial comments on the Sunday game last weekend. So Ger has had a thing or two to say about a thing or two.
Have you highlighted a few bits?
Yeah, highlighted.
Go on, hit me.
That's what happens with the highlighter of a Friday morning. I go through the papers and try and pick out a couple, because you can't be going through reading out the full article, boring the shit out of people. So you try and go through it and pick out what might be the couple of key quotes. Like, it was kind of difficult to narrow this one down, Kev. I'm not going to lie to you. There's so much good stuff in it. So I'll just read a few select and try and do as much justice as I can. Like, he borderline... I mean, he steps over the line here, I think, quite significantly on a number of occasions, and I will be fascinated to see what is, what if there is anything said in return. The context of this entire piece is that, Ger may well have an axe to grind, having been a previous Sunday game pundit, having been potentially one of the people that was been spoken about, that I mentioned at the start about Donalogue, talking about the old boys club that existed at RT when he went in there. So he could probably rightfully deduce that he was one of those people that Donalogue was talking about. And he has taken it to heart and has had a lash out today. He says about over the past 5 years, because the quality of the hurling controversy has been rare, but he says on 2 occasions in that time, I've been stunned by the aggressive nature of hurling supporters when they feel they've been shortchanged. One of them, he says, was the infamous Slittergate incident a few years ago when Cork goalkeeper Anthony Nash had his bag stolen from behind the goal. He had a load of balls in it, and somebody related to the Clare backroom team had gone over at some point or another during the game and taken the balls from him to throw him off his stride a bit. And everybody assumes that it was, I can't remember if it was admitted to at the time or if everybody just assumed, or there was video footage that it was Donalogue that had gone around to do that. And Ger goes on, he says, the other occasion was last Sunday night, and Monday morning, he writes here, following the night game edition of the Sunday game. By the first commercial break, I got 9 texts, and by noon on Monday, my phone was red hot. On Sunday night, the mood was one of fury, and on Monday, people I met were just disgusted that such great games, marvellous managers and heroic players had been treated with such disrespect. So he's setting out his stall. It's pretty clear. It's pretty direct, the point he's trying to make. Of course, the common denominator to both controversies is Donalogue Cusack. He writes, coached to Clare in 2017 and now back in the Sunday Game studio as an analyst. So he goes on to sort of further elaborate on like some pretty cutting comments, I would say, about Derek McGrath and Donalogue Cusack here. And he goes on to sort of make the point that, like, why weren't they talking about the quality of the games, like I said, and Davy Fitzgerald, particularly in the masterclass that he had almost pulled off, I suppose. He says what Davy did was clever, innovative and effective, and every knowledgeable person I met appreciated this. This is what Cusack and McGrath should have focused on, but of course if they did, they'd have to explain why neither of them used a spare man in this creative way. So it became all about justifying themselves, with both exposing their pathetic egos.
Jesus.
And the killer line, Kev, towards the end of the piece, the magical weekend of hurling was nearly ruined by 2 Egypts of megalomaniacs behaving like Statler and Waldorf on the Muppet Show.
Oh, God.
Like, he really, normally, Ger is pretty forthright and like such an interesting character when it comes to commentary and sport in general. We've certainly done pieces with him over the years. Just an interesting guy. But, I mean, I think, to be honest with you, he's overstepped the mark in terms of his... the personal nature.
He obviously feels that the attack on him, and he's had to come out, in his mind, all guns blazing. I'm going to give it back.
Yeah, I think it's too much. I think that he could have made his point. Like, the personal nature of the response there is probably undermines his point in an overall sense, because he obviously has an axe to grind that he's... But I do recommend that you read the full piece. There's much more along those lines in it this morning, and it's a story that obviously keeps on giving, those comments from Donalogue and Derek McGrath last weekend. So that's pretty much it from the newspaper.